When we're kids, before we get to school and really sort of start to get hemmed in by, society's expectations, we don't have the inhibitions that start to follow us around and start to influence our, kind of words, actions, clothes we wear, the way we cut our hair, although that's not really been an issue for me for decades, really. I think this is also relevant in music. Artists wrestling with breaking new ground or out of a genre, for example, fear of alienating fans, and it can sometimes make the music feel like the soul isn't really in it. I do get the reasons why. Personally, I've struggled myself with inhibitions. Worrying about what people think, and it's it can be quite debilitating. The way that my guest today is writing his music feels extremely uninhibited and completely natural, putting it's this sort of languid groove on, meandering its way through the haze, makes you stop and think about how the fuck we've sort of sleepwalked into allowing our lives to be so complicated. His music really makes me think of what humanity means. It's the kind of sound of friends, partners, acquaintances, strangers, even slowing life down so it can be enjoyed. Singing, talking, drinking, eating crisps, whatever you want to do. Whatever. His latest record is called In the Midst of You, and it's out on the 26th of January, and it's definitely my favourite of his records. Anyway, as usual, time to rein it in and welcome Brad Stank to the show. Brad, welcome, and thanks so much for coming on, man.
Hello. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
So, I was going to say,
yeah.
I think about that stuff all the time, about the inhibition thing.
The inhibitions.
I was thinking about it, maybe even this morning, like, how you, as a kid, you kind of you don't, like, think about the wider world as much and all that kind of thing. And, yeah, it's interesting, I think.
I'm completely sort of fascinated with I suppose, like, as I've got older, and started to, like, sort of think existentially, almost, like, kind of like what does life mean, and why do because I basically, like, about, what is it, 5 years ago, I sort of quit my job, started doing this podcast, started doing music writing, and it was the best thing that I ever did. And but I had to be really pushed into doing it. And the first thing that sort of came into my mind was, like, all this sort of self doubt, like, people won't want to listen to me, and it's well, people that I know, what will they think of what I'm doing? It's ridiculous. Your mind is a fascinating thing.
Yeah, I mean, I always think, like, when I was younger, in my, like, teens, and I was, like, super into music, and I was just like I was just a really good, like, music fan, like, I would kind of just get into everything. And if I was going to a gig, I'd be, like, in the front row, or like, I don't know, it was just like a lot of, you just don't think about anything. And yeah, like you say, like, as you get older, it's sort of, you become more self-aware, maybe, or, like, scared of not being seen as, like, cool, or being seen as cringy or something, or, like,
Yeah.
and, like, also, like, the more, like, when you get into a certain area as well, and, like, I studied music, so even that was, like, you have to sort of be more of a critic almost, and self-critic, and, like, think about what you're doing and blah blah blah. But I've been saying to a few friends this year I've really been trying to become more of, like, go back to being more of a fan of music, and, like, letting go of that a bit, and just sort of enjoying what I enjoy, and going to shows and having fun at shows of bands that I like. And yeah, you have to be, like, you have to sort of constantly remind yourself why you're doing it and why you got into it in the first place.
Yeah.
And not let those ideas of what other people think, like, matter to you as much, because I guess that's not why you ever wanted to do it in the first place. It's
In the
just
first place.
because you wanted to do it for you or whatever, So yeah, it's a really interesting thing as well, I think. Yeah,
it's funny how we, you mentioned about kind of like reminding yourself about why you got back into it, why you got into it in the first place, and how we lose sight of things, about what's important, and that time, or whatever the sort of catalyst is, to sort of almost like kind of refocus back on what matters.
yeah, and I think it's harder to do these days because obviously we're all like, I know it's like kind of cliche to say, but everyone is like on the screens all the time, and
Mm,
or there's always stuff that you can be like feeding into your brain, and a lot obviously everyone says that with social media, a lot of it is sort of makes I think probably most of us feel worse about ourselves rather than better.
yeah,
So it's I think these days, yeah, it's harder to remind you like you're at least you keep having to remind yourself why you wanted to do it, because you can kind of lose track of it easier, you know.
yeah,
Whereas I think maybe I don't know, maybe back in the 20th century or something, it was you could if you were a musician or whatever, and you wouldn't hear what people thought about it really, unless it was in the newspapers. But then at least you
true.
could ignore that, or
Yeah.
and you could kind of do your own thing, and not really the rest of the world wasn't as like readily available to you or whatever.
It's
So
funny,
yeah,
isn't it? Like thinking about that because like we were saying, just sort of before we sort of started recording, I was a student in Liverpool at the end of the '80s, right? And
mm,
obviously that that's the time when everything's analog, so you'd find out about music through either word of mouth or going to a gig at the student union or reading about like kind of sounds and NME and stuff like that. But
mm,
you'd sort of take a chance on it, and if you didn't like it, what you bought, it's like okay, you didn't like it. It felt yeah, but what you said about you didn't almost as an artist, you maybe didn't notice the criticism if criticism came apart from some snarky old you know, journalist in the NME or something like that, who
mm,
maybe have a bit of a sort of vendetta against you.
mm,
But yeah, it's sort of it feels in it. I don't know, man. I was thinking about this kind of nostalgia the other day, just about whether it can be whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. If it can be a good thing because it's it is a kind of connection with your past
mm.
and using it almost because I think thinking about history and kind of what's gone is really important for informing how the future looks.
Yeah. I mean, I think nostalgia is quite it's pretty powerful, isn't it? Like, I always get a bit nostalgic around this time of year, especially like leading up to Christmas and stuff,
Mm,
because it kind of brings back those like memories of Christmas, like being home. And
yeah,
I think it's definitely important not to like give it too much like notice. Like maybe notice isn't the right word, but you know,
mm,
better to be sort of present about stuff. I think in most situations, but
mm,
yeah, it is powerful, and obviously music can do that with you. And um, yeah, it's a weird thing to sort of, and it's also quite it's a powerful tool as well for writing, I guess, nostalgia, and all that kind
mm,
of stuff. But it's I guess it can kind of like drag you back a little bit as well. So
yeah.
it's got probably got its pros and its cons.
Yeah,
But
I was thinking you're absolutely right with that. Sorry to labour it, but it's like yeah, it can be negative, but it can be positive because it can remind you of good times.
mm,
On the negative side, it's like those times are gone, but at the same time, you're remembering stuff that was really good. So it can be
mm.
sort of used as a positive. I think. Um,
Yeah, I guess most stuff like that is like a bit of a double edged sword as well. Like kind of like you
yeah,
just said, like you remembering that sort of time where you felt happy,
yeah,
maybe happier than now. But then also it kind of the result of that is you just feel a bit maybe more miserable about where you are now,
yeah,
or like the fact that you're getting older or whatever, and stuff.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
yeah, that's kind of why I say like it's maybe sometimes better not to like dwell on it too
Not
much.
to dwell on it too much. Yeah, you're
Um,
right. Yeah.
but yeah, it can be hard to do. Yeah, for sure.
So what's been happening? What's been happening since Hank Stankovic? What have become like
Mm,
the big things in your life that are sort of influencing? Well, I guess what's kind of influencing the new record that's coming out. What's been going on?
mm. Um, I don't know. It's sort of just life. I guess is just
Mm,
I don't know. My life is pretty boring and normal most of the time.
mm,
So I was living in Liverpool, yeah, until sort of a few months ago. That was good, but I started coming down to London a lot more this year because I started. Well, I recorded the new album down here,
Mm,
um, and yeah, just started spending more time here. I guess like got good friends here, and
mm,
all that kind of thing, and sort of like started sort of seeing somebody, romance,
mm.
friends. My brother lives down here, so there's a lot of like big life things in that way, I guess.
Yeah.
And it's nice to have something new.
Mm,
But I don't know. I mean, a lot of the time, my day to day is pretty boring. So not much has
mm.
been going on, but
Yeah.
it's sort of just a lot of hanging out and thinking, reading, listening to music, um, trying to keep inspired and
Yeah.
sort of stay above the water. And because like life, I don't know, not life, but like the way things are going is kind of scary, isn't it? I guess
Mm,
in terms of wider society or whatever.
yeah.
Which is another problem with the how much information we have at all times on us.
Overwhelming, isn't it?
Um, yeah, you can just get totally
Just,
bogged down and stuff. So I feel like a lot of people probably feel the same. They're just trying to like keep whatever they're doing
I think so.
like going, and like it's kind of crazy. And I think I try not like to watch or read much news anymore, to be honest, because
Mm,
it just kind of like it's very easy. It can very easily just start to make you feel a bit depressed and stuff. So,
totally. Totally agree with that.
but yeah,
Yeah.
so like not loads has been going on, just like sort of normal normal life, I guess.
I mean, I guess,
Yeah.
kind of changing, where you live is a sort of fairly big thing. I mean, I suppose it's fairly early days, but have you? Kind of. I remember one of my very early episodes of this podcast. It's going back. It's probably going back over a couple of years, probably 2.5 years, and it was
Mm,
she lived in New York, and she moved
mm,
there from, I don't know, like somewhere else on that sort of East Coast, but a sort of smaller
uh-huh,
town. And she said, New York became the fifth member of my band. And
mm,
it was like she's like kind of saying that the her physical environment mattered, specifically in New York, kind of mattered so much that it just had such an influence on the sort of music that she was writing.
mhm.
What I
That
mean,
makes
and
sense. Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, yeah. When especially, I do feel like I've thought about this before. I feel like if I have my guitar when I'm back home, like at my mum's house, which is like
mm,
in this town, Chesterfield, which is sort of Midlands, quite a small town,
yeah,
surrounded by like the Peak District, so like nice countryside and stuff.
yeah,
Um, I feel like I write
mm,
like differently than when I'm in the city, kind of.
yeah,
Um, Maybe like nostalgia plays a bit of a part in that as well, to be fair.
mm,
Um, but yeah, no, it makes sense. I think it's like the situation I was in too when I made my first record, Eternal Slowdown, and like the situation that I had in Liverpool and the friends that I was like with and living with and what was going on sort of day to day definitely had an effect. And it also kind of means that you can never like write that exact same sort of style again almost because like
yeah,
it's so sort of specific to that time and place. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I'm kind of makes me worried though in terms of London because London's a bit of like it's a bit like bleak sometimes and like everyone's like struggling really bad and probably going to come out making either like some depressed like Elliott Smith record or like some big like punky record next or something. Like I'm just angry at everyone and stuff. Um, but no, I kind of knew when I moved down that I was gonna have to try and keep like zen and like because it's a different place to live for sure.
yeah,
And Liverpool, you can live very sort of a chilled life,
mm,
kind of. So I'm kind of, when before I moved, I was like, I'm gonna have to try and keep that mindset
Mm,
and not allow London to sort of bog me down, I guess. But we'll see what
yeah.
happens with the music. Yeah, because I'm sure it will have some influence, of course, and all that kind of stuff. Um, so yeah, it'd be
I suppose.
interesting to find out what happens, sort of thing.
I mean, I suppose that, kind of like I know you've got you got sort of partner, your brother down there, so kind of people that you know, and also and
Mm.
friends as well. I suppose sort of finding
Sorry
that.
about this, by the way.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
A little
Suppose sort of
coldy.
find
Yeah, sorry,
kind of
carry on.
kind of finding your tribe, finding your people,
Mm,
as well to give you that what's the word, not restraint, but to help you with that, with
mm,
managing the the pace of the city, some of the just the difficulty in getting around, the stresses and stuff like that, is
mm,
kind of important as well. Because sometimes if you're completely cocooned, you just
mhm.
all you got is your own head.
Yeah, I think I probably never would have made the move down if I didn't have the set of people that I've got here.
Yeah,
I mean, even like a year and a half ago, I would have probably said that I would never move to London.
yeah,
But the more people that sort of moved down from Liverpool here that I was friends with and all that kind of thing, and once you get like a bit of an itch for it, it kind of becomes exciting as well, right? And it's like, oh,
yeah,
maybe it's a new challenge. But at the end of the day, it is like a different sort of pace and different. You're surrounded by different people, obviously. Like
mm,
it's very sort of London feels a bit more like ambitious, maybe, or like
mm,
ladder
yeah.
climb, like if you
I
know what I
think
mean.
it's more obvious. It's definitely more
Yeah.
London. I agree with
Whereas
you.
Liverpool, especially like in the music thing in Liverpool, it's people are ambitious, obviously, but they're more ambitious sort of within themselves and not sort of. It's more supportive, I guess,
Supportive, yeah, yeah,
Whereas London, I guess, maybe feels a little like more dog eat dog or something. But I think
mm,
obviously that there's always going to be people in music scenes and stuff like that that aren't like that, of course. But
yeah,
and I think I was kind of worried when I moved down that I'd struggle to like meet new people. But I think with my friends that I've got here that know people that introduce me to people, it's like I seem to be meeting the right kind of people
yeah,
as well.
yeah. Well,
Um,
that's good news.
but you can tell it's a different sort of mindset almost in the city. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, sort of I'm suddenly find myself surrounded by people that we would like take the piss out of in Liverpool, like sit around in the pub and go like, oh yeah, I was in London on the weekend and there's just all these, you know, guys with the posh accents and all this kind of stuff. So yeah, but it's
And now
cool
you're
though.
living
I really
amongst
like
them.
it. Yeah, exactly. But it's good. I've become the enemy, yeah, for sure. Um,
I mean,
but
if
no,
you
it's not that deep, obviously. But
if we like sort of going back to when you were younger, when you were a kid, and I'm thinking of not just kind of musically, but kind of like formative influences, that you sort of recall, that stick with you as being kind of big enough to start, I guess, sort of shaping who you are.
mm, yeah, I mean, my mum and dad were both huge music fans,
Mm,
and just kind of they never really. Once I started getting the idea and the itch that I wanted to just do music for the rest of my life, which was when I was maybe like 12, 13, and then obviously as like an angsty teenager, you sort of like, no, this is what I'm gonna do. Like I don't need a plan B. But they never
yeah.
really put like that idea into me either, so it was always
Mm,
quite like chilled, which maybe I don't know. Maybe it's another one of those things where it's like I think probably made me a person that maybe was more suited to Liverpool, where it's more just like you do it because you really enjoy doing it and stuff, rather
mm,
than there was never that idea of like needing to make the most money or something
mm.
when I was growing up, which was always which is good, and I'm kind of thankful for that. So definitely that more sort of like energy of or like philosophy of like life is more than just sort of material things was kind of a big
Yeah.
one growing up, or it's one that I think about now. I'm like, yeah, I was never really pushed into thinking in that way, which is
Mm.
nice. Um, but yeah, I think my mum and dad just having a big love for music and like taking me to shows and stuff
Yeah.
when I was a kid had a big thing, and it kind of just made me like, oh, the town I was from, there wasn't really much going on. It was football or
Yeah.
music, basically, you know. So it was like,
And were your parents supportive of you know, kind of like the choices and interests that you had?
yeah, totally. Like, it's
Yeah.
kind of weird to me now, really, because they never like. Once I started playing, started playing the drums first,
Mm.
and I had like a bit of. I kind of, it was quite natural to me to play the drums. I don't know why, but it was just sort of like, and I think they could see. And then when I started like picking up the guitar and stuff as well, I think they could see that I was just obsessed with it, sort of thing. Um, and yeah, they were totally supportive of it. Yeah, so
Yeah.
like I was playing with a few friends back in the day back home, just to like my other friends that would come and see us or whatever. And yeah, there was never any sort of, oh, but what if it doesn't work out? You
It's funny
know,
this,
there
isn't
was
it?
never,
Yeah.
yeah, there was never really anything like that. So I was just kind of like, well, I just keep doing it. So like, I went to college and uni, just doing music,
Yeah.
um, and never really like, I never thought I'd kind of be able to be doing it as I am now, where I'm like planning tours and
Mm.
like putting records out with a record label. And but you don't really like. It was one of those things where I never really planned it either. It was
Yeah.
like, and I still don't really have a plan. I guess it's kind of just like,
That's brilliant.
you know,
Yeah.
it's you just kind of like, I don't know, living life, or like the
Was
journey is the journey is the goal almost. You
is
know
the
what I
goal?
mean? So
Yeah,
kind of just
absolutely. Yeah. Kind of enjoy the
see what
journey.
happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just just try and enjoy everything. I guess. Yeah. You know, so
I mean,
um,
does instinct play a big part in your life in how you basically like kind of like in how you live your life?
mm, I guess so. Yeah. Um, Probably more than I would like it to sometimes.
See to your
But yeah,
pants sometimes, like yeah.
yeah, or like maybe you know stay in on a Saturday night or whatever instead of just being like, yeah, let's go out. Well, um, but yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I think once I've got like an instinct for something, I am kind of it's kind of hard for me to get my mind off it a little bit, maybe.
Because it's
Um,
interesting this because I always had this I have I've learned to sort of trust my instinct more as I've got older, and definitely more
mm,
in kind of recent years. But I also like I'm also quite an analytical person, so which sometimes not so much now, but it has done in the past where I've just like analyze things, and I'm like, oh, for fuck's sake, come on, just decide. You know, and
mm,
there's something about what
totally.
sort of risk taker you are, and it's like, but and the thing is that like in 99% of the times, my instinct has been right, and that's not it's not
Mm,
that's just the way that it is. Usually, your instinct, I
mm.
think, is usually pretty trustworthy.
Yeah,
Unless
I
you
mean,
kind of make something completely rash, but
well, I agree, and I'm kind of the same as you in that way. Like, I'm a bit of an overthinker as well,
Mm,
almost like, um, which is kind of a juxtaposition, and it's super annoying sometimes.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, I think me when I was like sort of 20, 21, me and this friend of mine, we used to read a lot of like really heavily into like Jack Kerouac and stuff, and all those like
Mm,
beat people, and that was almost all about like like on the Jack Kerouac's On the Road is just about like
on the
going
road.
and seeing what happens and like
Yeah, yeah.
and all that sort of vibe. And we like would talk about it a lot. And I remember there was this girl that I was really into, and I was like overthinking whether I should say something to her. And
Yeah, yeah,
he was like, "Just do it, because if you do it and you've got the instinct and you're vulnerable about it, and it goes wrong, then at least you've like done what your body wanted you, or like your body and your brain wanted you to do,
yeah,
and at
yeah,
least you can take some like encouragement from that. At least you've like done kind of what you wanted." Rather than, you know, if you didn't do something like that, that's like almost instinctual. It's like you'd regret not doing it, sort of thing. So
Yeah. I
like,
think it's
even if it
sometimes,
goes wrong,
yeah.
at least you've kind of been you and put your heart on your sleeve or whatever. If you
It's
know
this
what I
kind
mean.
of thing. Yeah, it's this thing about, you know, I suppose it's an overused word, but kind of authentic. You know, gets used.
Mm,
You know, these there's some words that sort of get used a lot, and they start to lose the meaning or the impact, don't they? You know, it's become used in situations where it's not really relevant.
it's
But that authenticity and you know of you know when you make
mm,
those decisions based on instinct, that's kind of like that is the real you. That is what you know what your heart is kind of telling you.
yeah, and I think maybe the regretting something like that that you at least like went for that you wanted to do is always lesser than the regret of not doing it. You know, sort of
Yeah.
thing. So like,
So
yeah, I
this
think following your
so
instinct and being vulnerable like that is always a good way to sort of
yeah.
live your life, if you know what I mean.
So this is an interesting one.
Um,
When you were saying about when we were talking just a you know a minute ago about your you know your parents being supportive. So I was um I did my um music exams. I played the cello and I did my music exams up
nice.
to like grade 8 until I was
Mm,
16, and I gave it up when I was 16 or 17. You know, you're saying about that kind of angsty teenager, and it was funny because like I think it broke my dad's heart really, you
mm,
know, but my heart wasn't really in it. I felt I was sort of being pushed a little bit, but then
mm,
he he didn't he didn't really want me to be a musician because what he'd had in his life, he'd and I did do, you know, I had this kind of like conflict of kind of classical stuff that I had to do with the cello, and then this sort of punk rock
mm,
music that I just adored,
mm,
and but he'd had um quite a lot of sort of instability in his childhood, you know, and along with sort of financial instability. And because he basically kind of like
mm,
got himself an education, became a chartered mechanical engineer. So his thing to me was, you know, you kind of need to find something that's going to give you that stability. So you can see how this,
mm.
you know, experience of one generation sort of passes on to the next. It took me years to sort of shift that.
Totally, yeah. No, I feel that. I think it's very true. I think, um, yeah, I think a lot of us don't realize maybe until we're a bit older that we are kind of like more influenced by that kind of thing than like you would think or whatever. You know, oh,
Yeah,
my parents were just sort of projecting onto me what they wanted or didn't want or whatever.
yeah,
Which is really true. Yeah, I mean, I think my mum and dad's sort of thing about it was, you know, our town wasn't anything super inspiring or whatever. So I don't know. I think it was a thing of like they could see me wanting to go to or get out of the town and go to uni to study, and
yeah.
you know they were just like, yeah, see where it takes you, you know, because you don't
Mm,
want to be stuck here. I mean, my town, I love my town now, but for a while it was like, quite laddie, and like you know, if you stay there, you basically just you go out and get into fights or
yeah.
whatever. It's
You're
that
going to
sort of.
kind of fall into that way of
It's
life.
not all like that, but you know, people are sort of now my age, like you know, growing up and having kids, and that was another thing almost as well. Was like didn't want it, that whole idea sort of scared me as well, like
Mm,
settling
mm.
down too early, or um, I think they could probably just see that I had like some want of
Something
like
else.
living, yeah, living, not going down that like sort of traditional path. So they just were like, yeah, go
Mm,
for it. It'll be good for you or whatever, you know.
mm.
But yeah, I mean, the trust that I had from them, I think, in it, or just like maybe they just didn't care. You know? I don't know, but no, I think they did. I think they did. I think they just wanted me. They wanted us to be like happy, you know. So it was like
Yeah.
they didn't want to. My dad was a bit worse for it. He was like a bit of a sciencey guy,
Mm,
but still, I think he saw it. He would come and see me play, and he thought I was back in the day. I mean, he was like he'd come and see me play the drums, and he'd like bring his friends because he thought I was like a good drummer. And he was like, yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think he just like saw the passion for it, and
Mm.
Like, you know what, you just do that. It'll probably make you uh, happier than if we were to like bog you down and try and force you to go into something else or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's important, and I think some people, like you were saying, like you might have to sort of unlearn it almost a little bit if it's
Yeah.
if your parents aren't like that. Have to be like you have to realize yourself that, oh, I'm gonna have to do what makes me happier, because if
There
I
was there
don't,
was
then I'm
there was
gonna like.
there was definitely some of that,
Mm,
and
mm,
also because because I'm an only child, um, there's always like the kind of spotlights on you. It's like
yeah,
there's nobody else to take the heat off you.
mm,
If you do something that pisses them off, it's like, oh,
yeah,
it's
totally,
on me. It's always on me. The
totally.
weeks go
Like, yeah,
by
I
where
was
your
kind
mum's
of,
not speaking to you and stuff.
yeah, I was always, I've got a brother, a younger brother, so he was always like, I was kind of the quiet, shy one, he was
Yeah.
the troublemaker. Um, so yeah, I was kind of, maybe it was more of that as well. Like I was just sort of getting on my shit, never really causing much trouble, and he was one like in detention all the time at school, and
Yeah.
causing trouble and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, maybe it's
So,
a bit of that as well. Maybe it's maybe I did have a bit of the heat taken off me in a way by having a younger brother or something.
so
Mm.
how did you becoming a musician? How did you handle the shyness aspect of your personality?
Um, I guess that kind of became the one thing where I wasn't shy almost,
Mm, mm,
um, which is weird, but it is like I don't know, maybe probably a few musicians would say the same, but yeah, I kind of felt like in my town, especially being into like lots of weird music, and there wasn't loads of people, which is another reason why I wanted to get out of there. There wasn't a lot of people that really shared my tastes or
yeah,
anything like that. But I guess when you're doing the music and you feel that when you start meeting people that do have the same taste or have got like similar ideas to you or into the same bands, and
mm,
it kind of makes you less shy, I guess.
it
But
does.
also, yeah,
Yeah,
like
you're right. You're absolutely right.
I'd kind of be like the shy kid at school, but then like I would do like I remember doing like an end of year, like a talent show at the end of the year at school,
Mm,
and I was there like playing drums and stuff.
yeah,
And then like you'd see people after at lunchtime, and I'd be like, "Oh, that was sick." Whatever. And I'd be like, yeah, I don't know, like, but I don't know. When you're actually doing it, it's kind of like relieves the shyness
yeah.
almost in some way.
It
I
does,
guess
doesn't it?
probably for a lot of musicians, it's one of the only like it's a good way to like express yourself, I guess, without having to actually say anything or
Say
whatever.
anything. That's true. Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it kind of just removed the shyness, I guess. So I was never really that shy with it.
I was.
Yeah,
I mean,
I don't get nervous before stage or anything. Like,
do
people
you
are like,
know?
"Oh, you nervous?"
That's
I'm like,
interesting.
"No, I never was." Yeah, never really. I don't know, but I've not played like any huge. If I was playing like a huge show, maybe I would, but
Mm.
kind of just like trust it a little bit. I don't know. Yeah.
I guess some people are.
So,
It's interesting how that nervousness sort of works. I mean, some people are more nervous, talking or singing or performing or whatever in front of a small group of people than a larger group of people. And then I guess it depends on the composition. If it's your friends, if it's people that you know versus strangers,
mm.
there's a few different kind of permutations, aren't there? Of
Yeah, I feel more nervous if it's my friends in the audience. I
friends,
feel like
yeah.
um, because they kind of because I do feel like on stage not like a completely different person, but I'm definitely like a heightened
Mm,
version of like the Brad Stank thing, I guess.
yeah,
So
yeah,
sometimes it's easier when it's a room full of people that you don't know. It's easier to like put that on, I guess,
yeah,
um, as opposed to like if your mates are there.
yeah. That's
It's a
that's
bit
very
like
true.
it's a bit weirder, but
It's interesting this because I
but
remember I
yeah.
remember reading an interview with Karen O from the Yeah Yeah Yeahs, and
Mm,
she'd said that kind of like particularly sort of back in the day when they were it's what we talked about 2003 or something like that. That she was there were like two personas. So what you'd see on stage was like this sort of really kind of outgoing, flamboyant, singer, and then off stage it was just like completely the opposite. People were expecting to see the same persona, but it wasn't. She was just really shy and lots of social anxiety, around people and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's funny. Like my we played in London sort of a month or so ago, and
Mm,
my partner's housemate came to the gig, and after I was chatting to them after we got off stage, and she was sort of like, "What the hell? Like, never thought you'd be like that on stage or whatever." But obviously,
yeah.
if I go around to theirs, I'm just like, "Hi, how you doing?" or whatever, And like, but it's kind of like a different person on stage. She's like, I was kind of, well, I'm not going to start like walking into your house and belting out into song or anything. But yeah, I think it's definitely, especially around people that I'm quite a shy person. Like if I don't know people
Mm,
until like I've kind of had a good conversation or
yeah.
I don't know, something's like broken the ice a little bit. I'm a bit like shy, but then yeah, if I'm on stage, and not before you go on stage, you normally have like a beer or two or whatever, and it's a bit like
Yeah.
loose. And
Just to kind of
obviously,
loosen you
my
up a bit.
good friends playing on stage and in the band and stuff, and kind of trust them. And yeah, it's something I guess it's something that I've kind of put so much into over the years that I kind of like trust myself on stage
Mm,
and stuff, and like
yeah.
it's yeah, it's almost a different mindset of yeah, you know what I mean. You're in a
Yeah.
different sort of frame of mind with it all and stuff.
I guess having
So
that,
yeah, but it
that
is funny.
that sort of trusting yourself on stage is that's the I suppose kind of inner confidence and
Mm,
which is a I mean it's such a good and strong thing to have. Um, but I wonder how fragile that can be as well. I mean, I guess it's sort of wrapped up in so many other things as well, isn't it?
yeah, I think it's something I'm just kind of thinking about now. Is like I think that inner confidence is kind of there at all
Mm,
times, but it's kind of like day to day life. Maybe it's hidden a bit more,
yeah.
which is probably like a conversation that's way deeper than I can actually have. I guess. But I
I
guess
agree
like,
with you.
yeah, do you know what I mean? It's like it
Yeah.
must be there somewhere for it to come out. Um, but yeah, I guess like probably everyone has that as well. Like they know that they're going to be good at something, but it's like finding.
Mm,
I guess maybe I've been quite lucky to find that something that can like bring it out in a way.
yeah.
Um, and maybe that's just what it is. Is like you have it there, but that the music thing is the one thing that can actually
Mm.
help bring it out for me or whatever.
When
So yeah, I
when
mean,
you
it's interesting. It's interesting.
when you're writing, um,
Mm.
do you ask people for their opinion on what you're
No,
doing, or you completely sort of
yeah, like
solo it?
barely ever,
Yeah.
barely ever. Sometimes if I've got something like near to finished, I'll ask. Like I've got one of my good friends, Liam, um, who's got a project called Two Blinks, I Love You. He's like, we'll show each other stuff, but it's never like it's normally towards like when it's finished rather than when
Yeah.
it's like in the
In
like
the process. Yeah.
first things. But he's just someone we like share bits with. But it's normally something that you already know that you're kind of happy with.
Yeah.
But it's like you almost want someone to like just confirm that rather than like because you still have like the
Yeah.
thing
Yeah.
in the back of your head where it's like maybe it's shit. It's like
Now, so
um,
here's an interesting one. So if you imagine it like a scenario where you do that, and then kind of like he says to you, um, in whatever way he would do that, what about doing this or what about that? How
mm,
do you handle those? I'm not going to call them criticisms, but say kind of suggestions as to what
mm,
you could do with it if you've got a night, because it's often it's your baby, isn't it? It's something that you
mm.
kind of created. How do you deal with those sort of
I
things?
think yeah, it's a good question. I think it kind of, that situation normally like confirms how confident you are in it in a way, because
Yeah,
if
it's
someone
true.
says that to you and you're like, oh yeah, maybe you could do this, and then you're like, oh yeah, maybe I could, um, or you either go like, no, like I'm gonna just keep it as it is or something.
Keep
Like,
it as it is.
you've
Yeah.
got confidence in it or whatever. But I think it depends on also like, that's why I only like will show my stuff to certain people, is because if they suggest something different, then normally you're gonna like respect what they've got to say,
What
or
they
like
got to say.
take it on
Yeah.
board, at least think about it, even if you don't like sort of implement it or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, you've got to be quite choosy, because like if someone, I don't know, like if I showed my mum a song and she was like, "Oh, maybe you could change this or something," I'd be like, "Shut up! You don't know anything about
You don't
music
know what you're
or
talking
whatever."
about.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And she'd be like, your mum knows
So
best.
yeah, yeah. Do you know what I mean? It's like it caused more trouble than it's worth.
More trouble, definitely. Yeah.
So like a lot of stuff, like the song that I just put out a few weeks ago, "I Belong to You."
Mm.
Can you still hear me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, right. I've turned on my Siri by accident. Sorry.
No, I can still
Take
hear you
the
fine.
headphones. Um, yeah, she didn't even hear the new song till it came out, sort of thing. So,
Yeah.
um, and I think I used to probably show people more of the progress back in the day,
Mm.
but I think it's nicer. It was something that my mates in Haze used to do. I don't know if you know the band Haze.
No.
Who, well, they were my mates in uni. They got quite big, and then they passed away in 2019
Mm.
in like a car crash and stuff. But anyway,
Oh,
that's kind
wow.
of beside the point.
Mm.
But they used to like, I remember, because I really liked their stuff, and I'd be dying to hear it. Like I'd be like, "Go on, just show us a bit like of your new tune."
Mm.
And they kind of be like, "No, no, no, not until it's, at least until it's mastered or something." And then I remember Steve from Hers, he came round and showed me like the new album like finished, and I was like, "Wow, it's amazing."
Yeah.
And it was kind of cooler, even though it was your mate. It was like cooler to hear it just as like a finished project,
Finished thing. Yeah.
and then you actually be sort of wowed by it rather than having heard it like in like little, the baby steps of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've kind of started doing that a bit more. Really, I think it's kind of important to kind of keep it to yourself as well, to
Yeah.
build that relationship and confidence with it in yourself before other
In
people hear it.
yourself.
Almost.
I think you're totally right with that. I think I think you've really hit a nail on the head there with because that yeah, if you get some suggestions for it and then I'm just thinking about myself how I've kind of handled those, and then you kind of react against that. That's probably an indication that you don't have the belief in it yourself, and that the person is probably right, but you don't want to
Mm,
acknowledge that almost.
mm,
And I guess
mm.
when you
Yeah, I
share
think.
stuff with people, you need to kind of be sure that what they're going to tell you is going to be honest, and they're not going to
Mm,
just sort of say stuff because that's what they think you want to hear.
yeah, totally. And it's kind of nice to have those people too, though. Actually, that they're just going to be
Yeah,
like, "Yeah, it sounds
yes, yes, it's great. Yeah,
great."
yeah.
Yeah,
Another sound move there,
um,
Brad. Another sound move.
yeah, but yeah, no, I think it's definitely worth, instead of sort of showing people everything along the way, to keep it to yourself and yeah, build that confidence with it, sort of
Mm,
thing,
mm,
and get it to a point where you're like, if you're going to show someone, they probably are going to be like, "Oh yeah, this is great," and even if
mm,
they don't, you kind of won't even, it won't like affect you or bother you, sort of thing.
yeah.
So yeah, I think that's important. Yeah, for sure. Because
How
like
about,
with a song,
yeah,
with an idea, if it's an idea, then it is more up for criticism than like if you have a full thing. Because an
yes,
idea, the same song in an idea and the finished thing could be totally different as well. So it's like,
yeah,
or like different sounding, or like, so yeah, it's kind of, if you let the idea go to someone else and get feedback on it, it's maybe too early or something, like
mm, yes,
all
that's
that kind of thing.
true.
So
Yeah.
you've not given it a chance to like grow yourself yet a little bit and stuff. So.
And I think sometimes sometimes ideas, uh, depending on what they are, or I'm not extreme isn't the right word, but how kind of out the box they are. Sometimes people don't react well to those, because it's our mind kind of can't sometimes comprehend how far out of the box it is. So sometimes those ideas are best kind of kept to you, because you'll almost like sort of start to then formulate your vision of how to bring that idea into some
Hmm.
sort of reality.
Yeah, I guess sometimes with stuff like that, people might not get it until it's fully formed or fully finished.
Mm,
So you
yes,
kind of
yes.
have to give it that like breathing space and time to grow a little bit before people hear it. Even
It's
if it's
inter-
your friends or whatever.
it's interesting. I did a master's a few years ago, and I sort of wrote this thesis on like all these sounds a sort of very grand word, but it's basically like a kind of like a research thing on um kind of like what sort of skills we need for for kind of the way that the world is now and the way that the world's going in the future, because of all these sort of influence of sort of demographics and technology and kind of things like that. And I remember it took the people who are reading it a little bit of time to think, okay, no, it's right, because I was basically kind of saying that things like adaptability, things like curiosity are almost like now as important as, if not more important, and emotional intelligence, which is one of my things as well, than some technical skills, or kind of like some of the kind of histories and geographies and maths and whatever that you get kind of taught at school.
Hmm.
When those ideas are a little bit kind of out the box, sometimes takes people a little bit of time to get used to them.
Yeah, totally. And I think that's proved in a lot of good art or music or maybe poetry and stuff like that. Is that like
Mm,
stuff good stuff will always be sort of more appreciated over time.
yeah.
Um, when maybe it's a bit ahead of its time or something when it uh, first comes about, or
Mm,
whatever. Um, but yeah, I think that's kind of why, yeah, it's good to just sort of do your thing anyway, and
yeah.
whatever happens with it happens, sort of thing. And
Yeah.
if it's good, whether you're writing or doing art or music, it's probably, if it's good, then it'll probably will be appreciated at some point.
Mm,
It's or if you're being authentic with it and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's kind of, that's another thing, is like kind of almost circles back to what we talked about at the start, is like um, which I've now forgotten what I was going to say. It's kind of just like just doing what you like, the whole like instinct thing,
instinct thing.
and just doing it and seeing what happens with it, sort
I
of thing.
think the other part I was going to ask you about, which does link into instinct, I think, is around times when you felt uncertain about kind of whatever's sort of happening in your life, whether it's music or whatever, and
Mm,
how you've overcome that uncertainty, because the world is really complicated. It's full of uncertainty now, even more like with each day that we live in. I think it gets more and more uncertain. How do you
totally.
handle that, those sort of feelings that may come up?
Um, I think you just have to have the things in your life, I think, that can keep you like, what you can control or what you do know about, I
Mm,
guess. And that kind of helps you, for me anyway, keep you grounded a little bit. Um, and there's like this really good um, book that I've read a few times called "Dropping Ashes on the Buddha." It's
mm,
by this like um, this this Buddhist guy who went to America to teach Buddhism, obviously in like the
mm,
50s or something. Um, and his whole thing is sort of like to not know, almost, is like, or to keep the idea of like you don't fully know about something is almost a good way to live. And you can like
Yeah.
it makes you more present.
Mm.
Um, and it's yeah, I was saying this to my brother the other night as well. Actually, like a lot of really like the smartest people that I think that I know, sort of thing, have like when we were younger, maybe like 2021, we all thought we were like trying to figure the world out and like
Mm.
how we were going to do it and stuff. But we kind of got to the point now where it's kind of like it's almost better to just accept that who knows what's going on and
What's
like
going on? Yeah.
just sort of live your life almost.
Yeah.
So I think that's the only way really to do it because there's so, like you said, there's so much going on in the world and all, like basically all of it's bad as well. So it's
Yeah.
like, and you can spend all your time thinking about how to figure it out or how you
True.
want someone else to figure it out, like the government and stuff. Like, why aren't they doing this? Why aren't they doing that? And it only serves to make you more sort of anxious and stuff.
It
It's like,
does. Yeah.
and I think sometimes that's also the point in a way, to go like slightly conspiracy about it. But
Yeah.
I think the only thing you can really do is just hands up and be like,
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on with the world. I don't know how to fix it, but what you can do is sort of do your own thing and kind of try and stay in control of that, I guess.
So would you say is spirituality playing a sort of bigger part in your life now?
Um, I guess so. Like it's one of them where it's like it's um I love to read about it and like different
Mm.
religions and especially like poetry from old religions and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I think it's probably a more fruitful way to look at life than through like a spiritual lens than it is to look at life through like um, a material lens or like a
I agree.
political lens or something.
Yeah.
And it probably serves to make you a little bit happier and give your life a bit more meaning, I think.
Yeah.
But then my favorite guy is this guy Krishnamurti, Jiddu Krishnamurti, who
Mm.
kind of like also denounces all religion, and he's just more like you've got to just do it like on your own almost. It's kind of a
Yeah.
spiritual thing, but it's very like anti-organized religion.
Mm.
It's very much like um, he says like you have to die every day and like sort of let go of all your images, even in like relationships and stuff. Like you have an
Mm.
image of your friend or your wife or whatever, and you kind of
Mm.
have to like allow for it to be. But it's basically about presence, and like
Being present.
kind of living each moment as it is, I guess, which is
Yeah.
obviously way harder to. It's harder. It's easier said than done, obviously. But
Mm.
yeah, so I try and have a bit of that, but it's guess it's a bit of a balancing thing as well. It's hard to be like that
Yeah.
fully because you kind of just like maybe fall off the rails a little bit. But yeah,
It's kind of
definitely, I think it's important to have a little bit of or think about it a good bit and all that kind of thing.
I think
Yeah.
yeah, I agree with you. I think that living your life with that kind of lens on you because it that almost like kind of acknowledges that we're living in a world that isn't like that. So if you can have that in your being almost as a way to conduct yourself through, basically like this
Hmm.
this 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 big fucked up capitalist world, then
Mm.
at least it's a kind of way of living and a way of dealing with it that
Hmm.
hopefully gets you through it, being a
Yeah.
good person and hopefully improving yourself as time goes on.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. The thing I love about Krishnamurti is that he sort of like he sort of makes you think about the idea of like you know we all contribute to like the way the world is right now or whatever,
Mm,
which I think is so true and like it's something that
very true.
I don't like. People try kind of find it hard to face, like me included. But he says, like, oh, like to modernize it a little bit, like no one likes Jeff Bezos being a billionaire, but we all still have Amazon Prime or whatever, or like
Yeah. Yeah.
or like we've all got MacBooks and iPhones, but then we like moan about, So he kind of talks
Exactly.
about like if you want to stop it, you have to sort of stop being involved in it as well. Otherwise you can't like be involved in it and criticize it almost.
Criticize it.
Like, which is obviously, like I said, harder
Harder.
to do than it, like because. But that's the sort of vibe that I like. Is like if you want something to change, you first have to change it sort of in yourself, and then hopefully it spreads or something, rather than be a part of something. And because like no, everyone can see that capitalism has got to the point where it's just going sort of crazy.
Yeah.
But then like we say, it's like we're all still. I know people that moan about it loads that are then like fully involved in it or like contributing to it. So it's like
yeah.
So I think instead of sort of looking at these bigger bodies, maybe like governments and stuff like that, maybe it's like the spirituality idea is like maybe take a look at like how you could change first or something.
Yeah. I think
I
it's
like
it's
that kind
right.
of thing.
Yeah, those. I mean, it's right, isn't it? That those small actions. It's actions that we take ourselves. Whilst if you look at that in isolation, then it's understandable why you think, well, why should I bother? Because but if everybody takes that at it, it's that old kind of question, isn't it? But I think it's right that our individual actions. If I do it, if you do it, you tell somebody else, blah blah blah, but it needs that.
Yeah, and I've had like big arguments with my friends and stuff about all this kind of idea. About the idea of like I'll get drunk and we're going like we need a spiritual revolution, not a political revolution, and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, well, it's just obviously not going to happen. And it's like, well, it could happen if everyone went on that journey,
Yeah.
But obviously, is that less likely to happen than a political revolution is less likely to happen? I don't know. I like us talking about that kind of thing.
Yeah.
People say, well, but you still got the evil people in the world, and it's like, yeah, but they'd have to go on that journey too, or something. And it's like, obviously, it's kind of a far-fetched thing, but it's something that I enjoy arguing about more than left or right or who's bad and who's good or whatever.
I agree. I mean, I like I've become completely sort of disillusioned. With just with the entire system, it just does not. Whichever side of the fence you're on, it doesn't serve. And
exactly,
it's I just been I've been reading more and more about the ideas behind anarchy and sort of self rule. Whilst it may sound like a complete kind of pipe dream. When you think about and most people kind of like associate it with chaos, but in reality, it's about living with each other and living kind of for each other. This idea, and I think it sort of plays into this idea of we are like humans are part of life. Just sort of living together with with the plants, with animals, with nature. Instead of sort of like thinking of ourselves as this sort of superior being that have these kind of rights over everybody and everything else.
Yeah, no, totally. I love the Native Americans because they did it. They obviously had their chaos and their violence and all that kind of stuff too, but they at least knew how to like live with the with the world or the earth or something, and blah, blah. And yeah, I think it feels like a bit of a pipe dream because we've been so pushed so far away from that. But obviously, we all know that like the world is sort of for profit at the minute anyway. So it's like it's not like our fault. It's just like how technology is advanced and all that kind of thing. Then there's like go back to Krishnamurti again as well. There's a great quote from him that I think about a lot where he says like you got to think about whether you love your hurts or something like that, because where you live suggests that you do love your hurts or something like that. And it's like you need to like realize that we could actually be living in a nicer way almost.
Mm.
But it's hard, yeah, because people love money and stuff and comfort, and you know, like it's one of those things that's like we can talk about it for ages and ages, but who knows if
kind of
it's ever going
centuries
to
worth,
actually
isn't
happen.
it? Yeah. Anyway,
But who knows?
what's so we've got the, just talking about music for a bit. We've got the album coming out in 26th of January. Are you getting tours lined up to support?
Yeah, so we're doing a little like in-store tour first, in like around when it actually comes out. So that's more like stripped back shows, which I've never really done before. It'd be fun.
Yeah,
and like sign-ins and stuff, and quite
brilliant.
intimate sort of little ones, which would be really nice.
That'll be great. Yeah.
And then in April we're going on like a bit more of a full band tour, like sort of bigger venues.
Yeah.
And doing like a little UK run, and then we're going to Dublin as well for the first time, which would be great.
Amazing.
So yeah, really exciting. And then hopefully, sort of in the process at the minute of looking at some like European dates and hopefully some American dates later in the year as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, next year should be like nice and busy. So,
yeah, because you were at South by Southwest, weren't you, earlier this year? Yeah.
Yeah. So that was the first time I've ever actually been in the States. And it was I've been like really scared of flying my whole life, so that was like kind of a big deal for me. Had a little Valium and stuff, and just got on a plane as a zombie. But yeah, it was an amazing experience. So kind of can't wait to go back to the States.
Yeah.
It's like fully feels like you're in a film when you're there, or it did for me anyway.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So yeah, that would be great. Hopefully, we just like signed with a new American agent. So he's looking at like booking us a little US run,
US tour as well. Yeah.
Yeah, so that would be great. I mean, a lot of my fans are in the US, so it'd be nice. We were meant to go in 2019. That got cancelled, and 2020 we were meant to like replan it, and then with COVID, obviously.
Yeah.
But it feels like a long time coming. That I feel like I should have been playing in some US cities like years ago. You know, so it'd be nice, like finally, to get there and stuff. I think the show should be really good. So yeah.
That's amazing, Brad. Great.
Yeah,
right, man. Great stuff. Wonderful. Well, thanks so much, man. It's been great to talk to you.
That was a good chat. Yeah. We got a bit deep, didn't we? But
I'm glad things are working out in London as well, and we're kind of not far from each other as well. So hopefully we'll kind of be able to kind of catch up
at some point.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Nice one, man. Yeah, thanks, man. Good.
All right, man.
Good to see you afternoon.
Good chat. Yeah.